You know that in the Lutheran Church, hymns are introduced not by a simple playover, but by a short chorale prelude. And the purpose of chorale preludes nowadays, as also in earlier times, is to give some inspiration and some information to the congregation before they sing the hymn. The kinds of information which it gives are, of course, the melody that you're going to sing and the key that you're going to sing it in. The melody, perhaps, it won't be given as straightforward information in quite the same way as a straightforward play over a line of the hymn or something like that. But you have to look for it a little bit more. But in compensation, you get also a sense of the emotional content of the hymn that's a bit greater than if you just play a line or so. It gives an extra dimension to it, a bit of extra information, if you like, about the way in which the hymn is thinking, the way it's approaching the text. And of course, it's a little bit more interesting as well, which, in all fairness, is a part of the reasoning. So, in any event, a short chorale prelude is the thing. We've had a whole series about Bach's Orgelbüchlein. And Orgelbüchlein, you remember, is an almost encyclopedic collection of chorale preludes. We don't quite know what Bach's motive was in starting to write this collection, but at least by the time he wrote the title page of it, he'd decided that this was a collection which should provide instruction. Instruction in, perhaps in improvisation, in composition, in organ performance, in all aspects of creative church music, all in one go. But what we do know is that he'd originally set out intending to write 164 chorale preludes on chorales which he'd picked out of a hymn book, presumably, and put into a notebook, but he only got as far as writing 46 of them before he either ran out of time or decided that the project just wasn't worth completing for one reason or another. And that's quite a good parallel with what often happens today, because Lutheran organists who start in a new job are always very enthusiastic and think, yes, I'm going to create a collection of all the chorale preludes I'm going to need so that I'll always have them on hand and can play a chorale prelude on any hymn which I need to at the drop of a hat. And so they'll set off trying to create a collection of all the chorales in the book, either composing them themselves or collecting ones which are pre-composed and which they like particularly well. And just like Bach's Orgelbüchlein, these projects never really get finished because they realize that there's so much work to do in the job and there's so many other things to do that it just isn't worth completing such a mammoth task. And this is where Permen came in the 1990s. Permen is a collection which we're just having a dip into from time to time. The idea of it is that organists from all over the country, Norway in particular, because it's a Norwegian publication, although there are volumes also for Sweden and for Denmark and for Finland, and it's spread also into Germany, I think. But there is to be a number of chorale preludes for every hymn in the book, and these can be composed by organists or, in some cases, gathered by the editor, Germund de Course, and his colleagues, that are appropriate as chorale preludes to introduce the hymns in the hymn book. And where they are pre-composed, they've been transposed into the hymns, into the keys in which the hymns are found in the hymn book. The project was published by subscription in loose leaf to go into binders, ring binders. But now the project has grown so big, it's up to about 60 large ring binders with several chorale preludes for every hymn in the book. And for that reason, the editor has decided now to reissue the set in digital format as a web-based resource where organists can just look up the hymn which they're about to play and find the things online. The general idea of Permen is that there will be, as I say, several different chorale prelude settings of different lengths and different difficulties, different complexities for different circumstances. But in general, they should all be more or less sight-readable so that you can just pick out the one that you want from the collection and use it straight away. So the hymn which I thought we would dip into today is the one which is known in English as Jesus Shall Reign Where the Sun, and in Norwegian as Kved Guds folk, syng høgt i kor. And there are 7 different chorale preludes for that particular hymn melody in the collection. And I'll play them all because they're all quite short. So the question, I suppose, is which would you choose if you were playing that hymn and you wanted a chorale prelude to introduce it? Which would you choose to introduce it with? Do please write in the comments below which one you would choose and perhaps why.